naturally. You follow what you feel inside. It's intuitive, you don't have to try. It comes naturally.
From Green 960 in San Francisco, I'm Beth Greer, and this is your Supernatural Life. This show is part of the Green Morning, heard every Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And my show is about taking natural living up a notch to supernatural living. And each week I interview top experts who show you ways to live a supernatural life. So 2 weeks ago, I did a show with medical investigative reporter John Rappaport on why he believes vaccines can cause autism. And you can go to yoursupernaturallife.com and click on the July 16th show to hear it. Well, my show today is about how autism can be healed through diet and nutrition. Too many people are told that autistic spectrum disorders are something that they either have to live with or that no other solutions can be found aside from doing behavioral or educational interventions. Well, my guest today says there is another way, a natural way to heal autism. And thousands are finding relief from autistic symptoms by following special healing diets. My guest is Julie Matthews, a certified nutrition consultant and autism nutrition expert based in San Francisco. Julie has assisted hundreds of parents to help alleviate the symptoms of autism in their children. Her award-winning book, Nourishing Hope for Autism, is the leading comprehensive guide on nutrition and dietary intervention for autism, and it's written for parents, physicians, and nutritionists. Welcome to your Supernatural Life, Julie.
Thanks, Beth. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. So the statistics are kind of shocking. 1 in 150 children have autism, which is up from 1 in 10,000 since 1980. So why do you think the numbers are rising so dramatically? And does anyone really know what causes autism?
Oh, boy. It is rising dramatically. In fact, some of the latest numbers show 1 in 100 or 1 in 91. And in fact, since boys account for 4 times as many incidents as girls, it's actually 1 in every 60-some boys. I mean,
wow.
It's really very, very upsetting. Compared to when you and I were kids, it was 1 in 10,000.
1 in 60?
Yes, I know. It's really, really unbelievable, and it's not getting any better. And why is that? Well, firstly, is there one cause? Is there a known cause?
Mm-hmm.
No. And part of that, I think, is because I do not believe there is one cause. I believe that in my many years of studying this, like probably a good 10, 12 years of like looking into research and hearing professionals speak, and I've really come to believe that it's a combination of certain genetic predispositions that make you more susceptible to all of the environmental assaults and toxins that we have in our world today, and that those toxins can do everything from make DNA-type like gene expression changes and all sorts of things. So I really think toxins is really at the core of a lot of this. And then you combine that with the ability for toxins to actually make changes in the way that we express our genes and the expression of certain diseases and ability to, like, interestingly, they found in a recent study that the pollution from air actually turned on genes or off, I'm not sure which direction, but that actually helped to detoxify the very same substance. So here we are getting exposures to toxins that are knocking out our ability to detoxify those substances.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. One thing after another.
Right. Well, that's what my whole life's work and my book and my radio show is all about, kind of eliminating those toxins. But then when you have a child, who tragically develops autism, and so what's amazing to me, and not a lot of people are talking about it, is that diet, can be so such a turnaround for them. So tell us about that and how you discovered that and how it works.
Yeah. Well, firstly, when you say, tragic, certainly it's very, devastating to get that news. But I think the most tragic thing is not the news that someone has autism, but often the incredibly bleak perspective that most physicians give families. Most physicians believe that autism cannot be improved, and that you're just, you just have to deal with the lot that you get in the situation, and that's to me the tragic part, because it really strips all hope away from families and all action that they might take in order to try things that might be helpful for them.
That's a very, very good point. And physicians are so good at that. Unfortunately, saying certain words that just color the future for people's, hope and trying new things and all that. So
exactly, and so that's why I think when you say, ask me the question about what I'm doing with diet, and to me, it's all about nourishing hope, and that's I named my book that intentionally, because I feel like if we don't have hope, then we don't think there's anything we can do. We don't take any action, and certainly you're not likely to stumble upon helpful things if you're not out there looking for them. And I think it's so important to not only nourish hope, but also nourish ourselves in the process, and get as good of foods as possible. So I'm happy to kind of dive into what that dietary intervention looks like anytime, and I can either answer specific questions, or I can just kind of give you some more detail.
Well, why don't you talk about, what is a popular autism diet, and why it's working?
Yeah. So the most popular diet is a diet that removes gluten, which is the protein in wheat, and removes casein, which is the protein in dairy. So it's actually a wheat and dairy-free diet. And when you look into what's going on with these children, what is underlying this condition? Why do they have the behavioral things, the symptoms that they have, and let's look and dive deeper. So when you do that, you see that not only do they have these stereotypical repetitive type behaviors, but if you look further, you see that a lot of them have digestive problems. And because in medicine today, everything is specialized into these little silos, the person that's doing the psychiatric or the autism diagnosis is not the same person that's looking at their GI problems, is not the same person looking at their rhinitis or their allergies or whatever they have, and those are all different people. So most of the time, most people aren't aware that kids with autism have not only these classic autism symptoms, but they often have a lot of pain, they have a lot of gut problems, a lot of diarrhea, gas, constipation, all sorts of things like that. They might have skin rashes, sleeping problems, and all of these get to an underlying biochemistry that has somehow been knocked off kilter. And so when you look at that, to me, one of the foundational pieces is digestion. So if we look at how the gut impacts the brain, we can see that we need to look at digestion and how foods are impacting us, and we can see then a direct connection to the brain. And at some point, I'm happy to go into that gut-brain connection. But just for now, the reason that the GFCF diet or the gluten-free and casein-free diet is so helpful is because it helps to get to that underlying digestive problem, the inflammation happening in the gut, the foods that they're not able to digest. If they can't digest them, they can't absorb the nutrients, so they're deficient in important nutrients, and they're creating all sorts of compounds that, believe it or not, can act like opiates. So when you hear about kids with high pain threshold, addictions to milk, constipation, these are all actually common signs of opiate addiction or opiate consumption or opiate withdrawal. So what we do is we look at how do we remove foods that might actually be directly and indirectly affecting how the brain is processing information.
That's really fascinating. And the inflammation mostly is being caused by the wheat and the casein. Are there other foods that are triggers for that as well?
There are. To me, soy is another really big one that has a lot of inflammation that's involved with it and a lot of challenges to the gut. And soy is often substituted when dairy's not working. So that can be a bit of a challenge for them. And then other things like, to me, artificial ingredients.
Right. Those colorings are, I know they're banned in Europe and they're sold here. And I know the studies are showing that that they can cause hyperactivities, activity in normal kids. And so what are they doing to an autistic child?
Exactly. I mean, there was a study done in the Lancet in 2007 showing how they created these artificial additives created hyperactivity in typically developing 3 to 8-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can imagine that your detoxification system is impaired in any way, if it does that to healthy kids, what is it doing if you can't process those chemicals out? And what I find is that underlying autism is digestion problems, detoxification problems, and often a lot of immune system and inflammatory problems. So those artificial ingredients are just adding a big burden to their system.
Right. And sometimes it's as simple as just not buying food with food coloring, and reading labels.
Exactly. So if someone's not really sure about what to do, and giving up wheat and dairy seems to be too many steps away from where they are right now, a simple, in my world, kind of a way to, quote, nourish hope would be to simply cut out those artificial ingredients, even if it's not putting on my nutritionist hat and saying, oh, you should eat healthy things. Simply trading one cookie for another cookie and one candy for one that doesn't have all of these synthetic additives and artificial ingredients can be a huge difference. It can really be quite profound. And so I often suggest starting with something really simple like that, and you might see really amazing changes.
That's so interesting. Just that one small change can make such a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit about what mainstream medicine has to say about this diet and what they think. Okay. All right. We'll be right back.